Thank you so much for joining us for UC Love Data Week. We are thrilled to have visiting us once again, Sarah Ketchley, who is going to talk about Gale Digital Scholar Lab, which is a fantastic platform for text mining and really getting some good information out of a large corpus of primary sources. And this is something that you don't have to have coding knowledge to get started with. So I know text analysis can be somewhat intimidating if you're looking at lots and lots of documents. And so Gale Digital Scholar Lab is a fantastic way to get started and kind of play around with text analysis. So we will go ahead and get started. And thank you so much to Sarah Ketchley, who is our presenter today. So take it away, Sarah.
Thank you, Stephanie, very much. And I'm really delighted to join you for the second year for your fantastic Love Data Week, which has been, the program has been a delight to see. There's so much going on and so many great opportunities for learning and engagement. And so today I will be talking about Gale Digital Scholar Lab, as Stephanie mentioned. And a bit about my background, which will contextualize the demo that I do. I trained as an Egyptologist in the UK, so I have a PhD in Egyptian art history, and I've been based at the University of Washington for about 12 years now. I run an undergraduate internship program in digital humanities, primarily focusing on Nile travel journals from the late 19th and early 20th centuries. We transcribe handwritten material, we encode it in XML TEI, and we create databases, visualizations of that material. I've worked with around 300 interns, and since moving virtually, the program has gone from strength to strength, and this year I have 30 different students working on various aspects of the project. I also teach introductory classes in DH through Near Eastern languages and civilizations and informatics in the MLIS program. And I'll be teaching in the spring quarter a class related to the reporting of the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb, King Tut's tomb, in 1922, since it's the centenary this year. And we'll be using Gale primary sources, particularly the Times Digital Archive and the Illustrated London News, to engage with the reporting of that discovery. We'll be using the Digital Scholar Lab as well. So today, my intent is to give you an overview of the lab, some high-level discussion of its various features. We had a major upgrade, which was released at the end of last year, December 2021. So you'll see those features represented in my demo today. I'll talk through what they are. I'll touch briefly on two case studies. So an example of the lab being used for research by a team of academics. And then I'll touch briefly on a pedagogical case study, which is actually one of my classes from the University of Washington. And then I'll go straight into a hands-on demo. And there'll be time for Q&A at the end. And of course, if you have any follow-up questions, then do feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to have a conversation. So the Digital Scholar Lab was developed essentially to provide scholars new to the field of digital humanities a way to approach the millions of digital pages made available in Gale primary sources through the lens of text mining and analysis. And our goal is to provide solutions to the issues of how to compile a significant enough corpus of data to analyze without spending months or even years doing it, and how to conduct text analysis without necessarily having to learn how to code in Python, for example, or how to use the command line, and also how to begin working in the field of digital humanities according to best practices for conducting analysis and presenting the results of text mining work. This slide summarizes some of the highlights of the cloud-based DS Lab research environment. This includes access to a wide variety of texts from Gale primary source collections, which are based on your institute's Gale holdings. You have the ability to build custom curated content sets from these collections, as well as access to powerful text mining tools directly linked to the dataset curation process. We have an integrated learning center for those new to the field, also useful for teaching. We have the ability to clean text, to clean OCR text within the lab environment itself, and then the ability to organize all your research into one space. You can also upload your own plain text files to work with in the platform. And you can also export not only the statistical data and visualization outputs from your analysis, but also the OCR of up to 5,000 Gale primary source documents in your content sets as well. So the 6 analysis methods in the lab are based on open source libraries or lexicons. And this is a snapshot of some of the outputs you'd receive from each of the integrated tools. We selected these particular tools in consultation with our beta testing partners, who told us that these would best meet their teaching and research needs. But of course, our roadmap continually evolves and includes additional tools. We're talking about including mapping at the moment. And of course, we're very interested in feedback on tools that our users would consider to be valuable as well. So we can divide the analysis methods into quantitative or qualitative methodologies. And the quantitative, which you see along the top, are essentially numerical counts of different features or attributes within a content set. And so n-grams, for example, identifies raw word counts across a given content set, while parts of speech gives you a count of the different parts of speech, like adjectives, adverbs, nouns, etc., used by any given author. The qualitative analysis methods, on the other hand, rely on the user for interpretation. And that means that the user has to make an educated analysis of the outputs. It's not simply counting terms or entities. And it does require something of a subjective interpretation of the output in order to gain insights. But both of these analysis methods are useful, and they often work in tandem in any given project. So we spent a lot of time through 2020 and 2021 focusing on one of the most sought after areas of development that have been requested, which was essentially to support students and faculty in the teaching and learning of digital tools, as well as research best practices, and providing a scaffolded approach to applying text mining in research and instruction. And so the hub of this contextual framework is our Learning Center, which has a range of video tutorials. And if you listen to them, you'll probably recognize the person speaking. We also have written guidelines and annotated images as well. And our aim has been not only to explain the what and the how, but importantly, the why as well. We also have 3 interactive sample projects in the Learning Center that faculty and students can use as guideposts for using the platform. And I'll show you these in a little more detail during the live demo. Another one of our most requested features was the ability to upload user content for analysis in the lab. And so this enables researchers to begin incorporating their own plain text data for analysis, totaling up to 10 megabytes at any one time. But of course, plain text files tend to be fairly small, so the 10 megabytes represents a fairly significant chunk of data, and you can upload multiple instances of 10 megabytes. You can work with your uploaded material in the lab for content set building. You can clean your data and you can analyze it either alongside Gale primary source content or as a standalone content set. You can do this via file upload or text entry, as you see here. And once you've uploaded your data or created a text entry box, you can add it to a content set, you can update the text, and you can apply or amend metadata to individual documents or in bulk. And what we've ended up with then is a Digital Scholar Lab workflow and curriculum, which inevitably begins with a research question, which may be fairly broad to begin with, but going through the process of building, cleaning, and analyzing helps to refine these research questions and almost inevitably produces new questions to explore. The workflow begins with collecting and curating data for analysis, refining the documents included in content sets, and then taking these results forward to analysis and visualization. And then the final stage is the interpretation of results. And there are plenty of factors to consider here. So, for example, if the researcher is using the sentiment analysis tool, they might want to look at the words in the sentiment lexicon and their relative sentiment scores, so positive, negative, neutral, to get a sense of how the algorithm is working. And we provide a pathway to look behind the scenes at the algorithmic data, which I'll show you shortly. So, as Stephanie mentioned, in the introduction, we had some new enhancements released this late last year, and we're continuing to release some tweaks each month moving forward. These enhancements are refinements. So we have a redesigned interface, which aligns more closely with the look and feel of Gale Primary Sources itself. We have a more unified experience in the build, clean, analyze process. We've enhanced accessibility, increased interactivity, and we've improved the tabular data downloads as well. And I'll show you those in the live demo. I'll touch very briefly on a quick research case study, which is out of McGill University. And it focuses on uncovering, researching, and solving historical riddles in 19th century, 18th and 19th century papers and identifying that intersection with culinary traditions. They primarily use the British newspaper archives along with other Canadian and American newspaper collections to create riddle content sets. And the team wanted specifically to research the distribution of riddles by location and by publication date so that they would be able to build interactive mapping and time visualizations. So they reached out to our team and we were able to actually help out by surfacing the underlying metadata in the form of a downloadable CSV spreadsheet. And this is a feature that's now available to all users in the Digital Scholar Lab, and you can get a sense of the type of information that is available on that spreadsheet here. A couple of the outputs that the team generated from their analyses in the lab, including sentiment analysis of their content sets on the left. And then they worked with document clustering to identify similar groups of documents, which you can see on the right. But they were also able to export 5,000 documents of OCR text from the Digital Scholar Lab, which enabled them to further expand the types of tools that they worked with for analysis, including this one, which measures the reading ease score for the riddles in the data set, which they then went and visualized over time. So this gives you a sense of how the lab and the export functionality fits into the broader ecosystem of working in DH generally. A brief look at a pedagogical case study using the Digital Scholar Lab. As I've mentioned, I've been teaching at the University of Washington for a number of years now and teaching with the lab since 2018. My classes are generally no prerequisite and very much interdisciplinary. But I do recognize that students come to class with a variety of skills and goals, so I tend to provide a set of tiered learning outcomes, so basic and more advanced, with the goal of fostering and building on core computing competencies, promoting interdisciplinarity and collaboration, by using digital tools to investigate the data that we gather and curate in class. And I'll show you in the demo where you can access my learning objectives, syllabi, etc., which you're free to repurpose in your own classroom. We focus on identifying and articulating the digital literacies that students are developing and using in the classroom across each module in the syllabus. And this graphic shows the 6 literacies that we focus on, which I won't go into detail about now, but they are fully explored in a DH and Lib article focusing on digital literacies, which is linked in the slides here. And I'll provide the slides to Stephanie if you're interested in reading the article after the presentation. We use a variety of tools in class. You can see that our data sets are compiled from Gale primary sources. We also use open data, which we then curate and clean in the lab. And we use a variety of tools to analyze and visualize the data. You can see here that we worked with the named entity recognition tool. We exported all of the place names, so location data. We then used a geoparser. In this case, it's the Edinburgh geoparser to represent that mapping information in an interactive format. The final outcome of the class was an Omeka digital exhibit. So teams of students each built exhibits. And this is one example project built by a group of MLIS students this time last year. So they developed a research question, they built a data set of relevant material, and then chose specific tools or methodologies to investigate their question. In this case, they used topic modeling, and this is their output from the project, including their written evaluation of the analysis results, as well as interactive narratives which students embedded in their Omeka exhibits. This particular one is a story map JS. Again, the link to the class website, it's actually on the University of Washington's Open Scholarship Commons. The link, if you wanted to explore that information, is embedded in this slide. So without further ado, I'm going to go into a live demo. My contact information is here as well if you need to jot it down. So I will stop this share, come out of my slideshow, and I will reshare my Google Chrome screen, which hopefully you will be able to see now. So this is the landing page of the Digital Scholar Lab, and you will access this through your library's database listings, and then you'll find that there is a secondary login, which is either via Google or Microsoft. You can see I'm signed in with my Microsoft credentials, but we also support Shibboleth integration as well. So once you arrive at the landing page, there are some guideposts to orient the new user. So a summary of the process in the lab, build, clean, and analyze, as I've referenced already. This implies that the process is somewhat linear in nature. In fact, I would describe it more as iterative and cyclical. Most of the time is spent in the process of building, cleaning, curating the data so that the OCR is of a sufficiently high standard. Whatever that might mean, it probably won't be perfectly cleaned, but it will be good enough to take forward to analyze using any of the 6 tools in the platform. And I'd say that probably 80 to 90% of the time is spent in the process of data curation. and preparation, and then the analysis tends to move forward fairly quickly. But each stage of the process is very much interlinked, and each plays off the other. You can see that we have information about the texts which are available. I'm thinking that I'm probably logged out, but we'll see if it will take me through. Oh no, it will. Summary of all the different documents that you have available, and this will be based on your institution's purchases. A summary of the analyses that you can run and the sample projects, but all of this information is also accessed through the Learning Center, which I have referenced. A lot of great information here to orient the new user. A lot of videos, each of which is relatively short, between 1 and 4 minutes in length, so bite-sized chunks which are very accessible, along with written information, annotated images, and etc. A couple of other important things to call out. Vocabulary is often the biggest barrier to entry to any new field, and DH is no exception. So we do have a full glossary of terms, including terms which are perhaps specific to working in the lab. For example, content set is often referred to as a data set elsewhere. So we call out information like that. We have full FAQs as well, information about the privacy policy, user guidelines, etc. So all of the kind of meta information that you might be interested in exploring. These are the curriculum materials which I referenced earlier. So you are free to download 3 different syllabi, and these are based on the classes that I've taught at the University of Washington. They're mostly quarter-long courses, but of course you can edit them as necessary to fit into a semester framework as well. Here are the learning objectives, which you can download and repurpose. And these I've used to great effect in class. They're essentially end-to-end project outlines, which students can download and complete as they work through the process. So it's a great way of just breaking down on a step-by-step basis and taking some of the mystery out of what is going on, as well as framing some of the questions that you might want students to consider as they're working through building their own projects. We have 3 sample projects as well, which are a fantastic way to begin working hands-on in the lab. So I am going to log in. I thought it had kicked me out, so here we go. So what you can do, we've got 3 projects listed here. This one, Black America and the Law in the mid-20th century. You can click Get a Copy, and it will add the entire content set, so all the documents that were used to build this sample project, along with the clean configurations as well. And all users are able to access the material that is incorporated in these sample projects, whether or not your institution actually subscribes to the specific archives that were used. That's not a barrier to working with these sample projects. We also have Thinking Critically supplements for each of the sample projects, which delves into some of the why we work in the way that we do with these projects, some of the framing questions that we were asking. So that's useful to point out to students as well. And then what I generally tell students to do is to have 2 windows open, so they can work through the different questions, but then they actually have the window of the content set itself, and they can start to work hands-on, follow along. They can build or replicate the content set. You know, we have the advanced search terms that we use to generate the results, and the specific questions that were asked as well, the clean configurations that were used, and then some in-depth information about the tools that were used, the topics. For example, here in the topic modeling tool, the topics that were generated, and how the researcher worked with the resulting analysis output, the type of inferences that were made, and then how these results were interpreted, the conclusions that were ultimately drawn, and whether the analysis results actually answered the question or generated more questions to pursue, because this process doesn't often, at least in the first run, generates an earth-shattering research result. You may have to go back and keep tweaking and iterating on the process. And it's good to get into that curious mindset as you're working with this type of platform. So what my intention is to do now is briefly to build a content set to run through the process of generating a content set and moving it through the clean process through to using a couple of tools. I have been working both with my own data, but also working on the Illustrated London News archive, tracing the reporting and the history of archaeology, specifically Egyptology, in the publication in the 19th and 20th, early 20th centuries. So I've been uploading my own data, some of the material we've transcribed in the internship program, and I do that in the upload box here. You can see you can drag and drop text files, you can browse locally. We also have the text entry box, which I showed you in the slideshow, and this I've used primarily for concatenated text, actually. So I use a Python script outside of the lab and concatenate particularly a lot of my letters that we've transcribed, and I paste them en masse into this plain text file here and create a new document. It's important to add metadata because many of the tools rely on the metadata to generate analysis results. So, for example, Ngrams is going to obviously need the text to run raw word frequencies. Sentiment analysis, we have a visualization that visualizes sentiment over time. So it's going to pull from the publication date of the metadata field that you enter. Parts of speech looks for the author. So we give some information here about what you might want to consider including in the metadata that you add. But you can also do this in bulk. So you can see that these are some documents that I've been working with. So I've been looking at presidential speeches, but here are all of my letters that I've been uploading as well. We have the option to upload in bulk. So you can download a CSV for metadata, complete it in bulk, and then re-upload it. So that makes the process a little speedier, less onerous than doing it on a document by document basis. You can see as well, I'll just point out that we have contextual help videos in the top right corner on most of the pages. So if you are curious about how to work in this page, you can quickly watch a video which will orient you. If you wanted more information, it will take you through to the Learning Center here. So I'm going to go ahead and conduct an advanced search for archaeology in the Illustrated London News, and we eventually get through to the advanced search page. So I'll search broadly for archaeology. And this is one of the pages which has undergone a significant upgrade in the latest release. So we have provided a lot of contextual information to help users search effectively. And this mirrors the information that is available in Gale Primary Sources as well. So a variety of search tips available if you're not clear about how to use, say, Boolean operators, that sort of thing. And a lot of search limiters. So we can Search by specific databases. As I mentioned, I'm particularly interested in the Illustrated London News, so I'm going to limit my advanced search to just that archive. Gale has the whole run of that newspaper from 1842 to 2003. Various other limiters available here as well. But I will call out the OCR confidence range limiter because this was something we'd had requested by users, which we were able to incorporate in December. And this enables you to search within a specific range of OCR confidence. So in doing so, it's worth bearing in mind a number of factors which do impact OCR confidence. For example, publications which are image heavy tend to have lower OCR confidence ratings. The older archives, which were perhaps scanned from lower quality microfilm, even OCR that was generated from older versions of the scanning software could have lower confidence. So I tend to use this more as a guideline for curation than a definitive way of searching from the get-go. And certainly working with a publication called the Illustrated London News indicates to me that there will be a lot of images, so I don't necessarily want to start limiting with this range immediately. I might apply it a little later. So those are the two limiters that I'm going to use, and these are the results that I get. So 1,400 results. If I wanted at this point to continue curating, you can see that I have options for filtering here on the right. But this is where my process of content set building begins. So I take a look at a document on a document by document basis. I can see a snapshot of the metadata for each document in the middle column here, and then information about each individual document. So we have its title, the OCR confidence, which in this case is 94%, and then a snippet of OCR text. Then we can click into individual documents and take a side-by-side look at the document itself. So you can see that we have the key term, the keyword archaeology highlighted here, which generated the search results, and the OCR text as well. Various options for engaging with this individual document. You can add a single document to a content set. You can remove it if you determine that it's not relevant. We have citation options for this document. And then you can download the individual document to your local machine as well. And I'll show you shortly where you can download in bulk the OCR text. So a few options for engaging with this data. For the purposes of this demo, I'll assume that I'm happy with all of the results that have been returned, and I want to include them all in a new content set. So the default is to select 100 documents, which are listed on the first page, but you can also select up to 10,000 documents to add to a content set at a single click. In this case, I've selected 1,400, but the maximum size for a content set is 10,000 documents. And these can be 10,000 monographs, or they can be 10,000 newspaper editorials. It very much depends on the makeup of the content set that you're working with. So I'll go ahead and click Add to Content Set. I'll create a new content set. I'll call it ILN Love Data. And I'll click Create, and it will add all 1,400 of those documents to a new content set, and the messaging will change to indicate that they've all been added. So we'll go to the My Content Sets area now, and I'll just show you where you can see your personalized workbench environment, which saves all of the content sets that you've created over time. So these are all the content sets that I have been working with. You'll see that the one that I just created, the ILN Love Data content set, is available here with my 1,400 documents. This, though, is the project that I have been working on related to the newspaper. And you can see that the icon is slightly different. A new feature that we've added is the ability to collect content sets into folders. So it's an organizational mechanism. You can also merge content sets as well from this top menu, which is another new feature, duplicate content sets too. So if we take a look inside my Illustrated London News folder, you can see that I've been working on various instances of this curated data. And what I've ended up doing is actually dividing it into decades, which has given me more granular opportunities for working with the data. This was how I initially started. You can see that I included some notes about my content set, just orienting me to my search methodology. We have the search history, which I found very useful in terms of tracking back through some of my decisions. So here is that initial search that I just ran. So the keyword archaeology in the Illustrated London News with the 1400 documents. I then continued to search using different keywords, getting more precise as I went. These are looking particularly at excavations in Iraq, Iran, so Nineveh, Assyria. Layard is an archaeologist. And then I continued to build the content set out that way. But I could, if I wanted to, start to remove those documents and search terms if I decided that I wanted to refine in that way. And then the overview also gives information about the documents themselves, if I wanted to dig into those 7,000 documents. And then it summarizes some of the analyses that I've successfully run. If I wanted to go in and take a look at some of those as well. This area is where a researcher can download either the documents or the metadata. So you can see that I have the option of generating a download of 5,000 documents of OCR text. I can choose to download the documents which have not been cleaned, that I have not applied to a clean configuration to, or I can choose, one of my clean configurations, apply it to the 5,000 documents and download the cleaned material. In the case of this content set, you can see that it's actually 7,300 documents in size. So what I'd end up with is a randomized sample of 5,000 documents, which I downloaded, and then I'm free to work with outside of the lab using different tools. If I wanted to clean the documents outside the lab, I could do that as well. So users are free to do that. This is also where you can download the metadata that I referenced earlier as well. In this case, you can download up to 10,000 documents worth of metadata. This is all the information that you get, which, as I mentioned, is useful for working with tools outside the lab. Named entity recognition is one that particularly springs to mind. I generated a Tableau visualization actually of some of my research output using the metadata spreadsheet. I was able to import that into Tableau. So plenty of scope there for continuing your research outside of the lab. So to return to my content set building workflow, I've now built my content set of some 1,400 documents, and I probably want to ensure that those documents are as clean as they can be before taking them forward to analysis. And by clean, I mean that they don't have words that I'm not interested in including in my analysis. And these words could well be the most common words in the English language. And you can see some of those words listed in this left-hand column here. These are known as stop words, and we provide a mechanism to automate removing them from a content set. The stop word list is generated from the Glasgow open source stop word list. You can edit them, you can add, remove words if you wish to do so. We provide a variety of these starter lists in multiple languages. You can see the various languages listed here. It says that anything in the stop word list currently will be overwritten. If you did want to include multiple stop word lists from different languages, what I tend to do is say copy this entire stop word list and paste it to an external document. And then I'll choose a different language. And then I will add my English stop word list into this left-hand column. So there are ways to tweak that so you can apply stop word lists from multiple languages. One thing I always do before beginning the clean process is that I run an n-grams analysis on my uncleaned content set. And if you run an n-grams analysis, unigram, so a term frequency, it will return a list of the most common words in a content set. And prior to cleaning, those most common words are often OCR errors or words that you maybe don't want to include in your analysis. And so I then download that information in as a CSV. And I copy all of the words that I'm not interested in including in my analysis, and I paste it into my stop word list. And to give you a sense of what that looks like in practice, here's one that I did earlier. So you can see that this is the CSV information which was generated. These were identified as the most common words in my content set. You can see that really I don't want to include those in my visualizations. You've got OCR errors, things like that. So I've just pasted them into my stop word list, and that is a fairly swift hack to kickstart this cleaning process. We also have other options. You can choose the special characters that you want to clean, the punctuation. You can choose document sections to include or exclude things like table of contents, index, etc. I found in my specific work with my content set that Egypt is often misspelt. The G and the Y get confused. So I will replace the misspelling with the correct spelling, because I do want to include Egypt in my analysis. Once you're happy with the choices that you've made, you might want to test the clean configuration on a smaller subset of your content set, and we provide a mechanism for doing that. You can apply the clean configuration to 10 OCR documents, and this will generate a zip file which you download to your local machine, and you can compare those 10 clean documents with the same 10 unclean documents, just to ensure that the choices that you're making are having the effect that you hope it will have. And if you want to make further tweaks, at that point you come back to the clean configuration and continue to refine your choices. And as I mentioned, this is a very iterative process. It's often quite slow. Certainly students in the class are surprised by how long it takes. We've added the option to keep configuration notes, because obviously if you make a lot of minor tweaks, you want to keep track of the choices that you're making over time, so you can be fairly verbose in both your title and the configuration notes that you keep. So we'll assume that I've created a clean configuration that I'm happy with, and I'm ready to go on and begin the process of analysis. So we have 6 tools, as I referenced. We'll take a look at some of the content sets that I've been working with already. We'll take a look at the Illustrated London News. Actually we won't. Let me take a look at this 1910s one, and then I can show you how we can add contents, how we can add tools. So I'm choosing to work on the 1910s subset, and you can see that I have the option to add tools to run. So these are the 6 tools that we have available in the lab. Each of them has a brief description of what the tool does, but then we provide a mechanism to go out to the developer website to learn more about the algorithms that are running behind the scenes. We were very keen not to black box anything that is going on as researchers begin to generate their analysis results. And this is, of course, important for reproducibility in research, being able to speak to your methodology. So in this case, K-means clustering is generated by the scikit-learn algorithm. We use SPACY for named entity recognition and parts of speech tagging. Mallet is used for topic modeling. And then we have the Apache Lucene index, as well as some Gale custom coding for n-grams. Sentiment analysis is built on the AFIN sentiment lexicon. Clicking out to that developer website gives you the option to download the entire sentiment lexicon with the sentiment scores, which range from +5 to -5. And you can actually see the words that are being scored, so you can get a sense of what is going on there. So this is where you're able to add your analysis tools to your content set, and you can begin to make some choices about how you want to set them up to run. So if we take a look, say, at topic modeling, you can see that we are able to make a number of choices as to how we want to configure the topic modeling run. So the default will return 10 topics with 10 words per topic, and the algorithm will iterate through the process 1,000 times. And then we also have the option of either applying the default clean configuration, or we can choose a clean configuration that we have developed already. And then we can name our tool run. This is very important. You can see that if we take a look at one that I have run already. So my initial run, I called it my initial run, and it's got 20 topics with 10 words per topic, and this is the output. So I'm in process of working through trying to understand what my output actually is. We'll take a look at let's take a look at this one. And you can see that initially what is returned is a list of topics, beginning with topic 0 and going through to topic 20. So topic 0, topic 1, topic 2, etc. This is a relic of Mallet, and the qualitative work comes in making a decision about what topic 0, what thematic connection the algorithm has identified. So in this case, we can take a look at this topic, which initially could have been called, say, topic 13. I took a look at the words which are listed here. We've got tomb, gold, Tutankhamun, Carter, mummy, coffin. I decided that the connection the algorithm had made was going to be called Tut's tomb, and that's what I renamed the topic to. And this renaming will then trickle down through all of the resulting visualizations. And there are a variety of ways to engage with this data. So we can look at the specific terms So in this case, if I say wanted to look at the documents which include mention of the archaeologist Howard Carter, he's mentioned 79 times in 29 documents, and these are those documents that he's mentioned in. And if I wanted to look a little more closely at that document, I can actually click into it, and another window opens, and you can see that we have that side-by-side view of the original document with the OCR output on the right as well. So it just gives that granularity and enables the researcher to really dig into the data to gain an understanding of what is going on behind the scenes. If we wanted to start to add these documents to new content sets or to further refine, then we are able to do that from this menu bar as well. We have various ways to engage with the data. So if we say take a look at the tokens, for example, we have information about what we're looking at. So the count, essentially the word count of the documents assigned to any given topic. We can take a look at the different topics listed in the main bar. This is an interactive visualization, and then we also have the ability to download this topic visualization that we're looking at in various image formats. We can also download the raw tabular data as CSV or JSON, so we can take a look at the data that is generating this information behind the scenes. And then another way we can engage with the topic modeling data is in our topic proportion by document visualization. So this shows us the different topics across the entire content set, but then on a document by document basis. So if we take a look at my Tut's tomb theme, in these particular documents, it's not particularly well represented, but what I can do is to go in to select specific documents to look at in detail. We can show up to 50 documents at any given time in this visualization, and the researcher has the ability to choose which documents those actually are. So we'll take a quick look now at, let's take a look at document clustering, and it will show you some of the ways that we can begin to discern patterns and trends in our analysis outputs as well. So for example, if I come down to cluster 8, I can see, hovering over this information, that there seems to be a lot of orient line popping up. So we can open that cluster, and the algorithm has grouped all of these documents together. And glancing at the titles, I want to say that these are all adverts for travel in Egypt. And you can see that indeed that is the case. So we've got Australia and the Orient line. And given that my research is interested in archaeology, I'm not sure I want to include these in my content set as something that is being analyzed. So it's possible to segment some of these results and take them out of a content set. So you can see here how the analysis tools play into the process of data curation, potentially cleaning, that sort of thing. So these are all also downloadable. So that's a quick overview of 2 of the analysis tools, but you can see that in each case you can dig into the different analyses that have been run. I've run each of these tools on one occasion. But if you ran these on multiple occasions, this drop-down menu would give you the option to backtrack through the various runs of the tools. So I am going to stop now. Hopefully you have a good sense of how the lab works, how you could begin to dig into the process of working with your data in the lab, which I hope you feel is logical and accessible. I'm happy to answer any questions that might appear in the chat. Feel free to email me outside of this demo as well. I'm just popping my email address in the chat here, so you have access to that. But thank you all very much for your attention.
Thank you, Sarah. Every time I get to see you walk through some of the projects, I get re-excited about the lab and all the work that's being done. And the updates are fantastic. I love the emphasis on the iterative process and the importance of metadata as a data librarian. I'm so thrilled to see that as well. So we have another couple minutes. If people have questions, feel free to either put them in the chat, or we are a small enough group that you can go ahead and unmute if you have questions. If not at the moment and you are absorbing how fantastic that was, I would strongly encourage everyone to log into the Digital Scholar Lab and play around with it. It is extremely powerful. The other analysis tools are equally as impressive. I've spent some time with them, and the insights that you can get out of a document corpus at the click of a button in the iterative process are truly outstanding. So if there aren't any questions, and people are mostly just excited to test it out, which is part of Love Data Week as well, is showcasing all these different options that UC affiliates have access to. I will just reiterate, thank you again, Sarah, so much for joining us for the second year. And we will be posting this recording and the slides on the Love Data Week website, so you can go back to refer to it or share it with colleagues who might also be interested. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Have a lovely day.